Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Repeateron, and today we're going to be doing another tier list. This time we're going to be looking at all of the traits in Hunt Showdown, and I'll be ranking them according to how good that I think they are. We're just going to be going down level by level, and kind of explaining each one, potential situations where it might be good, potential weapons it might be good with. So let's begin with our first perk, and this is Adrenaline. Adrenaline cost 1, this is available at rank 1 now, which is awesome because before it used to be available at like rank 82 or something like that. It was really high for what it did, and this makes it so instantly start regenerating stamina when your health is critically low. Now, critically low, I believe that this is any time that you see blood on your screen, so if you get hit by something big like a Sparks, Mosin, Labelle, anything like that, where you are bleeding, you will start regenerating your stamina very quickly. This doesn't really help you all that much a lot of the time. Stamina does somewhat dictate as to how fast you can move, but it mostly dictates how well you can use like melee weapons and stuff like that. So if you happen to have like a bomb lance and get shot by a Mosin and you're close and you were out of stamina, then yeah, this would help a lot. But the majority of times that's not really when it kicks in, and even for just 1 point, this is usually not one of the perks to go for. Now yes, if you've gotten only 1 point and you're low leveled or something like that, you've just prestiged or something along those lines, then yeah, might as well grab Adrenaline because why not? But if you have access to other 1 point perks, you can probably do better than Adrenaline. I'd put Adrenaline into D tier. Next we have Conduit. This is also available at rank 1. This costs 4. This makes it so you get a health and stamina boost whenever you pick up a clue, rift, or bounty token. This one is kind of okay. It has some use because if you get to a clue and grunts decided to attack you, maybe armored hits you, maybe you had to deal with a Constantina armored, you don't have to look for a medkit in the immediate area, or you don't have to use part of your medkit to heal, so it does have some use in that way, but most of the time it's unnecessary. Conduit doesn't really help me all that much. So I'd probably put Conduit into D tier as well, but higher up than Adrenaline. This is probably on the high side of D tier, maybe into C tier, I'm not sure. Next we got Greyhound, also available at rank 1, and this costs 4. This makes it so you sprint at full speed for a longer duration before getting tired. That's really useful. This just makes it so you can move around the map quicker than you normally would, or more efficiently than you normally would, which is always going to be a good thing because you're likely going to be having to move across the map at some point, unless you just plan on being stealthy the entire time, which can be good, but it can also drag matches out for a very long time, and it's usually not as useful as just running from one clue to the next. So Greyhound, always a good one. I'd put Greyhound... I'm honestly not sure where I'd put Greyhound. I think I'd put Greyhound in S tier. Greyhound is just always nice to have. There's never a situation where it's bad to have Greyhound. Then we have Pack Mule, also a rank 1. This costs 3. Pack Mule makes it so that you receive an additional tool or consumable whenever opening toolboxes. This is really good too. This is probably one of the best perks in the game. Getting 2 charges of a med kit, getting 2 consumables that you lost during a fight, or that you used up during a fight, depending on how you look at it. Getting 2 more traps, always going to be a good thing. There's really no downside to taking Pack Mule, so I'd put this one also up into S tier. It's definitely a perk that I go for with pretty much all of my hunters. Next we have Hornskin. Hornskin is a rank 2 perk, and this costs 3. This reduces damage taken by blunt melee attacks by 25%. That's okay. There's not a whole lot of enemies that do hit you with blunt attacks, though. And this 25% is not going to stop somebody crushing you with like a sledgehammer or something like that. It might affect the Mosin Obra's mace, where you potentially wouldn't get killed by it, but I don't know if the mace is a one hit to the body or not. It might be, in which case this might save you. But I think it would still be a one shot if it hits you in the head. Same goes with if you got hit in the body with like the shovel. I don't think it would kill you then. At least I'm pretty sure it wouldn't kill you. So this would help a little bit with that. But I think if you get hit in the body with the heavy attack from the sledgehammer, or of course if you get hit in the head with the sledgehammer or the shovel, you're just going to die. This isn't going to help that much. Against most enemies, immolators do hit you with their hands, which I think counts as blunt damage. So might help against them. It would make them a little bit less annoying. Grunts with things like torches will hit you with blunt damage, but then you're still dealing with the fire. It doesn't really help you with meatheads, because I believe all of meatheads attacks count as like slashing damage or sharp damage with like the hooks and the cleavers that they use. Same thing with cleaver grunts, and hellhounds are always going to be slashing damage as well with their teeth. So it doesn't help you a whole ton, and this isn't probably going to save you. It might save you a little bit of damage to AI, which could be useful, but this still isn't like a super great perk. I'd put this one into D tier. Next we have Determination. Determination makes it so that your stamina starts recovering faster. This is a rank 5 perk, and it costs 3 points to buy. Determination's really good. I like having it on pretty much all of my hunters. Having faster stamina regen means that you can melee grunts easier, so you can spend less time just waiting for your stamina to come back. This doesn't really affect you if you plan on running a bunch of stamina shots or something. Some people do. It's not uncommon to run like the big stamina shot that gives you, I think it's 5 or 10 minutes worth of pretty much full stamina. So this is kind of a nice substitute for that, I guess. I'd probably put this one into A tier. Next we have Iron Repeater. This makes it so remaining in iron sights while firing shots while using lever action weapons, whether that be a lever action rifle or lever action shotgun, allows you to stay in those iron sights. So you actually do get a little bit faster rate of fire with both the lever action shotgun and with any of the wind-filled variants. This one's pretty nice for them, and it definitely makes it easy to fire at follow-up shots. I really enjoy this one, but it only really affects you if you're running the lever action guns, and it's not really a necessity to have on any of them, but it is a nice bonus to have to them. Probably into B tier, A or B tier. It's one of these two, because it is pretty useful. Then we have Resilience. Resilience is a level 9 perk. This costs 2, and this makes it so when you're revived, you get back up with 100 HP. This is really good. This makes combat reses very viable for you, and it's always nice to have on your person, assuming that you're playing duos or trios. If you're playing solo, then Resilience doesn't help you at all because nobody's coming to res you. If your teammates do res you, you can actually get right back into the fight without immediately getting killed by necessarily all weapons. You probably won't die if you get shot with compact ammo, assuming you don't get shot in the head or something like that. You'll still likely survive one of those shots, so you might be able to get to cover. Resilience, pretty nice to have. I'd put it into B tier. Next we have a new perk. This is Assailant. This is unlocked at level 11, and this costs 2 points. Now this increases your melee damage with throwing knives and throwing axes. For throwing knives, this honestly doesn't matter at all. You're never going to try to melee anybody with a throwing knife. That is just a really bad idea because it does such low damage. And even against AI, it's still not that viable. Even against grunts, they can usually shrug it off, so you're going to have to hit them, I think, twice with this. Maybe if you hit them in the head, it will kill them with one hit with this. This is more viable with the throwing axes, though, because then the Tomahawk becomes a one hit to the body. And that is useful, because you can then rush people with the throwing axe. A little bit useful there, but still kind of underwhelming. I'd put this one into C tier. It does have some use. Next we have Bolt Thrower. This is unlocked at level 13, and this costs 4 points. This makes it so reloading all of the crossbows is much quicker. This is really nice if you want to run any of the crossbows, especially the big crossbow, and it's something I would definitely recommend if you are running the big crossbow. It makes the reload time much more manageable because the crossbow has very slow reload time. This is less slow, but it's still not super quick, and it's nice for the hand crossbow too. So if you're running the crossbows, I'd probably say that this one's like an A tier perk or an S tier perk. If you're not running the crossbows, then it's virtually useless and you put it into D tier. So I guess I'm going to put it into A tier and call it good there. Next we have Levering. This is at level 14, and this costs 3 points. This makes it so you can lever your lever action gun. So this goes for any of the wind-filled variants as well as the lever action shotgun. So long as you're hip firing the gun, you can fire it much quicker then, but with less accuracy. Levering is surprisingly consistent and really good at close range. It does make any of the windfields very scary indoors, or inside of like small compounds. And I would definitely recommend taking this if you're going to run the lever actions, unless you're running the Centennial or the Centennial Sniper. If you're running either of those, it honestly doesn't help that much. It's still better than not having it, but like especially with the Centennial Sniper, I've never had any success with it. With the regular Centennial, I've had some success, and with all of the compact windfields, you have much better success. Same with the Terminus, I've had a lot of success with it there. I'd put this one high up into A tier. Up next we have Salve Skin, which is at level 15, and this costs 5. This makes it so you are resilient towards fire damage, and your burn speed is 25% slower, both when you're alive and when you're down on the ground, so it will take you longer to burn out on the ground. This can be kind of useful. Taking fire damage is usually inflicted by either you being down and somebody else lighting on fire, somebody throwing like a Hellfire or a Molotov on top of you, or an Immolator coming up and exploding on you. Maybe even a yellow barrel as well. Yellow barrels, I think this will save you a health bar. I don't think it will knock it out, but you'll still be in danger of getting hit by long ammo after that. So you do have to watch out for that. Immolators, I don't think this takes a full health bar from you either. Maybe if you have a small bar, it will. I'm not entirely sure. And then against incendiary ammo, it is kind of a nice buff to have. I've had this a few times when I've gotten shot with incendiary ammo. You have to kind of already have this perk, and then you also have to run into somebody using incendiary ammo, which is already not a popular ammo type to be using. So Salve Skin's okay, and it gives you some value, but not tons. I would probably put this one either on the low side of B tier or the high side at C tier. It's one of the two there. Next we have Bulwark. This is unlocked at level 16 now. Again, this used to be like level 80 something or 90 something. I don't remember when Bulwark actually was unlocked before. This costs 2 points, and this reduces the damage from explosions and the Bomb Lance's harpoon attack by 50%. Now, this does allow you to survive a Bomb Lance shot, which is kind of handy and kind of funny when it does work that way. Although, again, you don't necessarily see a whole lot of Bomb Lance shots. At least I don't get hit by a whole lot of Bomb Lance shots. I've maybe died a handful of times to it throughout the whole time I've been playing Hunt. Usually I would die to the melee of the Bomb Lance, not necessarily the shot from the Bomb Lance. So Bulwark can help with that, and it can help with some explosives, although this doesn't count for all explosives. Like the frag bomb, it doesn't count towards, I don't believe. It will count towards things like the dynamite, so you could survive like the single stick of dynamite if you were just on the edge of the blast radius, to where it would kill you normally, but Bulwark will kick in and not allow you to die. If you're in like the epicenter of the explosion though, from multiple sticks of dynamite, either the big bundle or the just regular bundle, you're still probably going to die even with this because it just does more damage than you have health. So it can help in some situations, and it is kind of useful to have. It might actually save you from potentially red barrels, again, if you're just on the outside of the explosion. I think if you're standing right next to a red barrel and explodes, though, it'll still probably kill you. So I'd put this one into C tier, I think. Up next we have Fanning, which is unlocked at level 17. This costs 7. And this makes it so if you have a single action revolver, then you can fan the hammer of that revolver firing much faster when you're aiming from the hip. So this will count towards like the conversion pistol, the packs, the Nagant pistols, not the Officer Nagant though, because that is a double action revolver, and it won't count towards any of the semi-autos like the Bornheim or the Dulce. Fanning can be really good. It depends on which gun you're using it on and how close you are, because this is far less reliable than levering is. And that's kind of the problem with Fanning, is that it's a gamble every time you use it. It can make certain weapons really strong, like the 1895 Nagant and the Silent Nagant, as well as the conversion pistol. Just the base conversion pistol is very strong with Fanning because they have low spread patterns. But on weapons like the chain pistol, it has a very wide spread pattern, so it's pretty unreliable. With the Lamat, it can be pretty unreliable too. Fanning, I would probably put into, I think I'd put it into B tier. It can be really good, but it's unreliable, I would say. Next up we have Ghoul. This is at level 19. This costs 4 points. Ghoul makes it so when you kill a grunt at close range, you restore a small amount of health. This is at a 25 meter range, so no matter how you kill it, you will restore a very small amount of health. Pretty much you use this just to regain health without having to use medkits. So if you got hit by a grunt and it took out your small bar, you could potentially wait for your other small bar or big bar, whatever you have, to then heal up, and then you kill like a grunt with a melee, whether it be a knife, knuckles, well, really with anything, and then you get that little bit of health to that next bar, and then you just wait for it to regenerate. That's usually the best way to use Ghoul. It's not like you can use this very effectively in combat when you're fighting another player. It's okay for getting your health back every once in a while, but it's not something I usually go for. I'd put Ghoul probably into C tier. It's okay. Up next we got Gator Legs. Gator Legs is unlocked at level 21, and this costs 2 points. This makes it so you walk and sprint faster in deep water. You also make less noise when you're crouching in water. This is really good. I like that they buffed Gator Legs. It used to be a pretty underwhelming skill, but now it's a pretty decent one to have, because every map has water on it, and there's probably going to be times where you just want to cross it, either because it's the shortest route to get to wherever you're going, or because it may actually be the most efficient way to push somebody. So I'd put Gator Legs probably into maybe the middle of B tier. It's pretty good. Next we got Lightfoot. Lightfoot's available at level 27, and it costs 5. This makes it so vaulting, jumping, falling, and climbing ladders you do silently. Now you can't do this multiple times in a row, so you can't just kind of hop your way to a location. You could do that before, and that was really strong when Lightfoot was like that. It's less strong now, but it's still a really good perk because it makes it much easier to actually get into compounds if you want to fight somebody, especially if you want to enter potentially silently without alerting whoever's inside. It's really good for pushing boss layers if you have Lightfoot, because you can climb up ladders and people, so long as they're not watching the ladder, probably won't know where you are. So it makes plays like that much safer than it normally would, where somebody could just listen to where you're coming from and then ambush you there. So Lightfoot's still pretty good. I would probably put this one up into A tier. It's really nice to have, but it's not S tier like it once was, where you could just kind of like bunny hop all the way through the forest and nobody could ever hear you. Next we have Serpent. This is a level 28 perk. This costs 4, and this makes it so when you're using Darksight, you can interact with clues, rifts, bannable targets, and abandoned bounties from a safe distance at 25 meters. So if you know that somebody's camping a clue, or if somebody is camping the boss, maybe they killed it and they're just waiting for people to come inside, you can actually stand outside and then grab that or banish the boss to get the bounty. You can also grab bounties if you think somebody's watching over a dead body that has a bounty. This can be really good, and it makes it much safer to navigate. It's also really good if you don't have weapons that are good for pushing. So if you're running a lot of like single action revolvers without fanning, if you're running single shot weapons like the Springfield, the Sparks, something like that, even bolt actions like the Mosin or Lebel, where you don't want to push necessarily a boss layer with them, at least in the same way that you would with something like the Winnie or any of like the shotguns or anything like that. This can help quite a bit, and it's a pretty nice perk. I would put this one probably up into A tier as well. Up next we have Physician, which is at level 29. This costs 5 points, and this makes it so you reduce the time needed to bandage. So if you get bleeding from a grunt hitting you, a hellhound hitting you, crossbow bolt or a bow and arrow shot hitting you, you can then patch yourself up quicker than you normally would. That's always nice. Same with if you're on fire and you need to stop that, this will be a little bit quicker. I do like that. This helps quite a bit. It's never going to be a bad thing, but it's not super necessary or anything. I'd probably put this one up into B tier. Next we have Steady Aim. This makes it so weapon sway gradually lessens when you're looking through a scope of a rifle. Now this one can be useful if you want to really hard scope somebody. So if you're using something like the Mosin sniper or the Spark sniper or maybe the Centennial sniper, and you're just watching a location because you know somebody's going to poke their head out at some point, this actually can help. So long as they don't know where your position is. Because if they know where your position is and they plan on just firing at you, or you've been in a sniper fight or something like that, this might actually hurt you then, because you're just sitting there waiting and not moving from that spot. So if they just fire at that spot, they could kill you. But if they don't know you're there, it can actually help you quite a bit. But most of the time it honestly doesn't. So I'd probably put this one in high D tier too, because in some situations it can help, but in most situations it doesn't. Up next we have Whispersmith. This is unlocked at level 32. I don't know if I said Steady Aim was unlocked at 31 and cost 3, but I will now. Whispersmith is unlocked at level 32 and it costs 2. And this makes it so switching weapons or just switching equipment in general is quieter than it normally would be. This is pretty good. It's not really necessary in most instances where you might hear somebody switching their guns or something like that. But in that case, you're probably in very close relation to one another, and you might hear them switch to a melee and ready it up. With this, you might be able to get away with that without them realizing what you're doing. So it can help a little bit, but it's usually not going to help you a lot. I'd put this one into C tier because it still has some use. Up next, we got Steady Hand. This is unlocked at level 33, and this costs 2. This makes it so weapons sway gradually lessen when you're looking through the scope of pistols or a stockless weapon with a scope. So this only affects a few guns. This affects any of the sawed-off rifles with a Deadeye or the Nagant with a Deadeye. And that's about it. I don't really use those weapons a whole lot, but if you are going to use them, this can help. But I find this one a little bit underwhelming because those weapons already have a good amount of sway. So lessening it by a little bit isn't going to matter all that much, I would say. I think I'd probably put this one into D tier too. It's just like the weapons you don't see used that often, and you don't really see this perk used all that much with them. So I guess I'll just put it there. Up next we have Marksman Scopesmith. This is unlocked at level 35, and this costs 2. This makes it so you can remain scoped in when firing with a marksman variant of a rifle. This one can help with some of the marksman rifles. mostly with the Lebel and with the Winnie. The Martini also has this, but it doesn't help all that much, and so does the Springfield, because you're likely going to have to get off, well, you have to get off of your scope to reload those guns anyway, because they're single shot. So any weapon that is a repeating gun, this can help with, like I said, the Lebel or the Winfield, but the other two, not so much. I think those are all the Marksman Scope variants that we have right now. I'd probably put this one up into, I'd probably put it into C tier. It can be useful for those weapons, but for the other two, it's not needed at all. Up next, we have Bloodlust, which is unlocked at level 37, and it costs 4 points. This makes it so your bleeding will not escalate from light to medium or medium to intense bleeding. This can be useful depending on what's hitting you and causing you the bleeding damage. So if you get hit by multiple dogs, you're not going to be bleeding out real quick. If you get hit by multiple cleaver grunts or meatheads, it's going to help a little bit there, but it's not going to help a whole ton, and I don't find this one to be incredibly useful. I'd probably put this one into C tier as well. Next, we got Frontiersmen. This makes it so you can carry one extra of each of your tools. That can be really useful. You get an extra charge with your med kit, you can get an extra throwing axe, you can get an extra concertina trap, you can get an extra flare gun shot, you can get quite a few extra things to it, but this is coming in at 8 points that you need to use. This is unlocked at level 39. This one I really do like, and I think I'd put this one high up into A tier. I don't think I'd quite put it into S tier, because even though, like, yeah, an extra medkit charge, an extra concertina trap is really nice, it does cost a lot of points to get. So I feel like it's pretty balanced in that regard. Up next, we got Beast-Faced. Beast-Faced is unlocked at level 41. It costs 3 points, and this reduces the range at which animals will interact with you. This is mostly crows, dogs, chickens, any sort of sound trap, horses as well. They will not be spooked by you as easily because you have this perk. That can be really useful. It makes it so you can run through the map much more quietly than you normally would. This does not affect monsters, though, so this won't affect things like hellhounds. They'll still be attracted to you, and same with armored immolators. Everything like that will, but any of the sound traps won't. Beastface can be pretty useful, and I'd probably put it into B tier. Next, we have Decoy Supply. This is unlocked at level 43. This costs 1 point. This makes it so you can resupply any sort of decoys when interacting with ammo crates. Which is way better than it used to be. The way that it used to work was that you would get pretty much all of your decoys from toolboxes, which is the way it works currently now without any sort of perks, at least towards regular decoys. I don't remember if it counts towards like decoy fuse or to the blank fire decoys, but now it does. That can be really useful, especially if you're running the decoy blanks or if you're running the decoy fusees. Very useful because fusees are really good to get people to move out of buildings and stuff. And for 1 point, it's pretty nice. It's nothing crazy. I'd probably put it into C tier, but it is nice to have. Next, we have Ambidextrous. This is unlocked at 44, and this costs 3 points. This makes it so that you can reload faster when you're using dual-wielding guns. And you also get special animations with the semi-auto pistols, which is kind of cool. The Dolch has a really cool animation there. It makes dual-wielding feel even better. Dual-wielding's kind of already not super popular, but it's an okay option. It is viable at close and medium range, and this does make it so it's a little bit more useful when you're actually running around, because whenever I'm using dual wielding, I tend to shoot pretty much everything I see. Reloading quicker is always going to be nice, and I'd put Ambidextrous probably up into B tier. Next, we have Tomahawk. This only costs 1. This is unlocked at level 45, and this makes it so that you can throw all of the world melee weapons. So this is the axe, the sledgehammer, the pitchfork, and the shovel currently. Any of these can kill somebody if you hit them directly in the... I think it's anywhere if you hit them with the axe, the sledgehammer, or potentially the pitchfork. I think the shovel might only be the body or head. I could be wrong about that. It might be everywhere on the body for everything. And this is one of the funnest perks to use in the entire game. Not one of really the best perks, but one of the funnest. And just for that, I'd probably put it up into C tier, even though you could argue that it's D tier in terms of actual use. Up next, we have Iron Sharpshooter. This is unlocked at level 47. This costs 3 points. This makes it so you can remain sighted with the iron sights whenever you're using a bolt-action rifle. This does make it so you can shoot those bolt-action rifles faster. It actually makes it so that Vetterli can outshoot quite a few weapons, because it does have a decent rate of fire, and this makes it even better. It makes it so the Mosin and Lebel are a little bit better too when firing at enemies, and it's all around a really nice trait. I would probably put this one up into... I think I'd actually put this one into A tier. Next, we have Bolt Seer. Bolt Seer is unlocked at level 49, and this costs 2 points. This makes it so Bolts, arrows, throwing axes, throwing knives are highlighted in dark sight and have a higher visibility so long as you're within 30 meters of those thrown weapons. This one, they did buff recently, which is nice, because before it was pretty much useless. You would never take it, and the only weapons you would use with it would be like the crossbow, and even then it's not that difficult to see your bolts, or if you completely lost a bolt, you wouldn't bother trying to look around for it. This does give you a little bit of a reason to get those back, and it is nice if you lose a throwing axe, because you can only hold 2 of those normally, unless you're running Frontiersmen, in which case you could hold 3. I would probably put it on the higher side of D tier. It used to be on the very low side of D tier, but now it's on the higher side of D tier, I would say. Alright, at some point I missed 2 of these perks. I don't know when, but apparently it was in between Gator Legs and Lightfoot. I just skipped right over them. So let's go back to level 23, which is unlocking Deadeye Scopesmith. This makes it so that you can remain scoped when using a Deadeye version of a gun. This does only cost 1 point though, so it is kind of nice, and I would probably put this one into C tier. Our other perk that we missed was Silent Killer. This is unlocked at level 25. This costs 5 points, and this reduces the sound when performing melee attacks. This can be a little bit useful. It depends on the range though, because people can still hear you melee enemies. They can still hear them die. They might not be able to tell what, I guess, skin you're wearing, whether you're a male or a female. So they might not know how many people are actually around if you are using this. And it does give you a little bit of stealth, but for the most part, it's kind of just okay. I'd put this one into C tier too. All right, now moving on back to where we were, we have Quartermaster. This is unlocked at level 51. This costs 6 points, and this makes it so that you can equip a medium slot weapon in addition to your large slot weapon. So you could take something like a full-sized rifle and a sawed-off shotgun, a pistol with an extended stock or something like that, a full-size shotgun and a sawed-off shotgun or a sawed-off rifle. This gives you a lot of really good options, and it's a really nice perk to have most of the time. I would put Quartermaster probably up into A tier. It's pretty nice to have like another medium slot weapon that you could use. Next we have Mithril Dist. This is unlocked at level 53. This costs 3 points, and this dramatically reduces the time needed to recover from poisoning. This can be pretty nice, although antidote shots are very cheap and very effective, so it's less useful just because that item exists, but it's still never really a bad thing to have. If you do find yourself getting poisoned by like leeches or by hives, can be pretty useful. I'd put this one into like B tier, low end of B tier. Next we have Pitcher. Pitcher makes it so you can throw things further. That's pretty nice. You can throw explosives further than you normally would be able to, which makes like the big bundle of dynamite actually fairly safe to use then, because otherwise it's pretty unsafe to use. It also makes it so you can chuck frag bombs pretty far into buildings or around a corner or whatever it might be. Pitcher's always going to be a good trait to have. I'd put this one up into A tier. Next we have Bullet Grubber. Bullet Grubber makes it so when reloading any sort of gun that would eject the round, you then can catch the round and you get to keep that bullet. So this works for the Bornheims, the Dulch, the Labels, Mosens, Spectres, and for the Terminus. All of those are pretty nice to have, so you don't lose bullets as often. So this is never going to be a bad thing if you plan on using those weapons. It's less necessary with the bolt-action rifles now that they've added in the faster reload mechanic or the unshot reload mechanic. So I think Bullet Grubber is less useful then, but it's still pretty handy if you're using those weapons. I'd put this one probably on the low end of A tier. Up next we have Poacher, which is unlocked at level 59. This costs 2 points. I should have said that Bullet Grubber costs 6 and it's unlocked at level 57. I also don't know if I said that about Pitcher, which is unlocked at level 55 and it costs 6. Poacher makes it so that you can place and disarm traps quietly. This can be kind of useful. People won't know if you're actually setting up traps inside the base. It's less useful for disarming than it is for arming, I would say. Because if people don't know that you're setting up traps, they might just run right in and try to rush you, in which case that's great for you. Whereas in the other direction, they might just be monitoring their traps, and if you go to disarm them, you could potentially be shot then. Also, it's usually better if you see something like bear traps to just shoot them or melee them closed, rather than actually take the time to close them. That just makes it so you're more likely to get shot. If you actually shoot them, you're less likely to get shot because it's a little bit safer. But Poacher does only cost 2, so it does have a little bit of use, but not a whole ton. I'd put this one probably also in the high end of D tier. Next we have 100 Hands. 100 Hands makes it so that you increase the damage with the hunting bow when it's at full draw and you draw the bow a little bit further. This increases its damage by 25%. It also reduces the sway when you're at full draw. That can be pretty useful. It makes the hunting bow way more consistent than it otherwise would be, especially at medium range, to where body shots will usually kill other hunters. And 100 Hands is pretty nice. I'd put this one probably into B tier. I forgot to say with 100 hands, this is unlocked at level 60 and costs 3. Our next perk is Dauntless. This is unlocked at level 61 and it costs 1 point. Dauntless makes it so that you can defuse any sort of throwable that can be defused so long as you're within 3 meters of it. Now, this can help for certain explosives if they were thrown at you, like the sticky bomb, because it has a very long fuse time, so it's very likely that you can put it out. You can also do this with choke bombs, which is really nice because it denies people being able to just throw a choke bomb from a safe distance to put out their burning friend. That's probably the best use of this. You can also use this on your own explosives too if you want, which can be a little bit useful if you just get something that you're not going to use, like a chaos bomb, and you don't want it going off to reveal your location. You can at least throw it at the ground, put it out. This one's pretty good. I like it. It can be really risky to try to stop an explosive, like a frag bomb or something being thrown at you, but this can potentially pay off. So I think I'd put this one into C tier. It's kind of like Tomahawk, where it's a pretty good perk for 1 point. It doesn't always help you in the majority of situations, I would say. Next we have Kite Skin. This is unlocked at level 63. This costs 1 point, and this reduces your falling damage by 50%. Kite Skin is fantastic. Makes it so you can jump off of high buildings without worrying as much. You can jump to locations where you might ordinarily get hurt, but you won't now, or it will hurt you very little, so you can still get to some locations that might be useful during a fight. And it's probably the best, 1 point skill in the game, I would say. I'd put Kite Skin up into A tier. It's really nice to have. Next, we have Iron Devastator. This is unlocked at level 65. This costs 2 points, and this makes it so you can remain in the iron sights while using the Spectre pump shotgun, and that's the only weapon that this actually affects. This does make it so you can shoot the Spectre a little bit faster than you normally would, but that doesn't really matter. And with shotguns, there's no difference in hip firing and ADSing in terms of the pellet spread or anything like that. So you usually just fire from the hip most of the time. This one's probably one of, if not the worst skills in the game at the moment. I don't see why this costs 2. It might as well just cost 1, because maybe if you are running a Spectre, it might be worth taking every once in a while. And it is a little bit worth taking if you plan on running slugs with the Spectre, in which case this isn't a bad choice. But just the ordinary Spectre, I'd probably put this in D tier. If you're running this with slugs in the Spectre, it'd probably be like C or B tier, where it still has some use then. Up next, at level 67 for 2 points, we have Dewclaw. This enhances the melee attack of the bow and arrow. Now, this does make it so the bow and arrow kind of acts like a knife then, because you just stab with the arrow, so you can use it over something like just taking a knife or knuckles or whatever it might be, if you just plan on meleeing like that. So it's kind of like taking a weapon that already has a bayonet or a hatchet or a claw or something like that. Talon, I guess. It's kind of like that, but in a perk version. So if you do plan on taking the bow, it's okay. If you don't plan on taking the bow, you're not going to use it. And even with the bow, it's alright. I'd put this one in the low end of C tier. Next, we have Necromancer. This is unlocked at level 69. This costs 4 points. And this makes it so you can use your Dark Sight to revive a downed partner so long as you're within 25 meters of them. And this will cost you the equivalent of a small health bar, so 25 health, if you wish to do it. It does also take longer to res somebody with this than it would be to actually walk over and res them. Necromancer can be really strong, especially in the middle of combat, if people aren't watching the body, if people haven't trapped the body with something like a Constantina bomb or Constantina wire. For that, I'd put this one probably up into A tier. If you're playing solo, obviously this doesn't matter, and this will help more if you're playing trios than if you're playing duos, but can still help in duos and can still be really good. Up next, we got Vulture. Vulture is unlocked at level 71. It costs 3 points, and this makes it so you're always able to loot dead hunters even after they've been looted by other players. Now, if the hunter has been burned out, that doesn't work, I'm pretty sure. This can be actually kind of good if you're running low on money, or if you're playing in trios. In trios, this just allows everybody on your team to loot, because if you have it, then you can let your teammates loot a body, and then you can also loot the body, still get some more money, get some consumables. And if you've been having a really bad day at hunt, you've lost all of your hunt dollars or something like that, if you find a hunter with Vulture, you can just kind of play super passive, and then by the end just kind of sneak in like a rat and loot all the bodies that have happened at potentially a boss fight or something, and maybe get some extra money from it. So it does give you value, but maybe not always the most value, especially during a fight. The most value it can give you during a fight is if your teammates have already looted somebody and then you also loot them to get another consumable. So I'd put Vulture probably into C tier. Next up we got Doctor. Doctor's unlocked at 73, and this doubles the amount of health that you're given by using a first aid kit. Doctor is super good. It makes your first aid kit way better than it normally would be, because it usually would heal you 50 points. Now it heals you 100 points, and you still have 3 charges of it. So you double the effectiveness of your healing kit, or potentially more if you also wanted to count Frontiersmen in there. And it's really nice to have. I would put Doctor probably up into S tier. It's one of the best perks in the game. Next we have Sniper Scopesmith. This is unlocked at level 77. This costs 3 points, and this makes it so you can remain scoped when using any of the long scope sniper versions. Now currently there is only 3 sniper variants: the Mosin, the Centennial, and the Sparks. The Sparks doesn't really gain much from this because it's only a single shot, so you have to reload it afterwards. The Mosin and the Centennial get much more from this than the Sparks would, because you can do follow-up shots while still kind of remaining on target. And for that, it's pretty good. If you like running sniper weapons, then this one is pretty useful. I would say it's potentially more useful than even the other Scopesmiths, because you're likely shooting at a very long range, and this can make those shots more consistent. So I'd put this one maybe on the low end of B tier or the high end of C tier. It's pretty nice. And then our last perk is Vigilant. This is unlocked at level 87. This costs 2 points, and this makes it so nearby traps are highlighted in dark sight. That can be kind of useful. You can find bear traps, you can find concertina wires, you can find alert trip mines, you can kind of see where people are placing stuff, and then that can also kind of give you an advantage to see where they would be most likely expecting you to go in or least likely expecting you to go in. So it does give you some information there, and that is pretty valuable, but if the team isn't putting up traps, this doesn't really help. If they're just kind of throwing traps up all in one area, or they brought just nothing but traps, this isn't going to help a whole lot either. So Vigilant might be useful every once in a while, but not usually going to be super useful. I'd put this one into C tier as well. So this is where I'd put all of the traits in Hunt Showdown. Tell me your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear them. I plan on doing more videos about Hunt Showdown, especially these tier lists, because they're super fun to make. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you guys did, be sure that you get subscribed. That way you get notifications whenever I post these videos. Special thanks to the supporters of the channel. These are my members over here on YouTube and my patrons over on Patreon. If you would like to be part of that and get early access to videos like this, be sure to do that down in the links below. And if you'd like to see more of my Hunt Showdown content, be sure to click over here on this playlist. And I will see you guys next time. Till then, stay cool. Bye.